In 1914, Europe's great powers were divided into two rival alliances, the Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, the rising power in Europe. The Triple Alliance consisted of Germany, fearing encirclement by its competitors, Austro-Hungarian Empire, clinging to its fragile imperial status, and Italy, seeking gains at the expense of the French. The spark ignited on June 28 in Sarajevo, as Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, heir to the throne, was assassinated by a 19-year-old Slavic nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austria-Hungary accused its Balkan rival, Serbia, of aiding the assassin, issued an ultimatum with humiliating demands, and when Serbia rejected it, declared war. Within hours, Austrian forces shelled Belgrade. Russian Emperor Nicholas II, feeling a duty to defend Serbia, a fellow Slavic state, ordered the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II pledged support to Austria-Hungary, viewing a conflict with Russia as inevitable and preferring a preemptive strike. The Russian mobilization justified Germany's own mobilization, followed by a declaration of war on Russia. Germany understood that war with Russia meant war with Russia's ally, France. Hence, the Schlieffen Plan was devised to face this dual-front threat, rapidly advancing through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy the French armies near Paris, securing a swift victory, then turning east to deal with Russia. With Russia's ally, France, having developed the Schlieffen Plan to counter this dual-threat war on two fronts. Firstly, its armies will swiftly advance through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy the French armies near Paris, achieving a quick victory. Then, its forces can move east to deal with Russia, whose massive army will take longer to mobilize. Germany declares war on France. 6 million men are now marching to war across Europe. Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Alliance do not bind it to join an offensive war. The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get involved in the war in Europe. Britain, an ally of France, is initially unclear whether to join the war against Germany. But when German forces invade Belgium, violating its neutrality guaranteed by Britain, an ultimatum is sent from London to Berlin demanding withdrawal. Germany ignores it, and Britain declares war. A British infantry force in France, while the German invasion reaches a critical stage days before being halted by Belgian resistance in the fortress city of Liège. German forces commit numerous atrocities against Belgian civilians. The horrors amplify Allied propaganda, helping sway neutral public opinion against Germany. France, unaware of Germany's vast encircling movement, launches the 17th Plan, an attack on German territory. However, in the Battle of the Borders, they are pushed back, with massive losses on both sides. British reconnaissance forces clash with the German army in Mons, but the British are vastly outnumbered and soon join the French in retreat. The Allies make their stand at the River Marne, 40 miles outside Paris. Desperate counterattacks save the city and push the Germans back. Both sides suffer 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea begins as both sides attempt to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where the Allies desperately hold on, preventing a breakthrough by the Germans. There are more severe losses on both sides. The armies then dig in along a 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. Trench warfare has begun. British warships win the first naval battle of the war in the Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain's navy, the most powerful in the world, boasts 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19. They now impose a naval blockade, a massive army that will take longer to mobilize. Germany declares war on France. 6 million men now march to war across Europe. Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Entente alliance do not bind for offensive war participation. The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get involved in the war in Europe. Britain, an ally of France, is initially unclear whether it will join the war against Germany. However, when German forces invade Belgium, violating Britain's neutrality, a warning is sent from London to Berlin demanding withdrawal. Ignoring it, Britain declares war. British infantry forces in France, as the German invasion reaches the crucial days before the resistance of the Belgian city of Liège. German forces commit numerous massacres against Belgian civilians. The atrocities fuel Allied propaganda, swaying public opinion in neutral countries against Germany. France, unaware of the encirclement by the mighty German offensive, launches the 17th Plan, an attack on German territory. However, in the Battle of the Border, they are pushed back with massive losses on both sides. British reconnaissance clashes with the German army in Mons, but the British are significantly outnumbered and quickly join the French in retreat. The Allies make their stand at the Marne River, 40 miles outside Paris. Desperate counterattacks save the city and push the Germans back. Both sides suffer 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea begins as both sides try to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where they fiercely contend. The Allies struggle to break the German defenses, facing severe losses on both sides. The armies dig trenches along a 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. The era of trench warfare begins. The British Navy secures its first victory in the naval battle of Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain's navy, the world's strongest, boasts 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19. They now impose a naval blockade on Germany, preventing contraband, including food, from reaching it by sea, aiming to cripple the German economy and force surrender. However, later in the week, the British battleship HMS Pathfinder becomes the first victim of a new, deadly weapon, the submarine launching torpedoes. German submarines or U-boats with a surface range of 9,000 miles can attack undetected from beneath the waves, posing a new challenge for British naval leadership. On the Eastern Front, Russian armies invade eastern Prussia, but suffer grave mistakes leading to disaster at the Battle of Tannenberg. German generals Hindenburg and Ludendorff orchestrate a stunning victory, taking 90,000 prisoners and decimating the entire Russian army. Russian contributions to their defeat include transmitting unencrypted wireless messages. Another massive German victory occurs at the Masurian Lakes, pushing Russian forces into retreat. In just 6 weeks, the Russian army suffers nearly 250,000 casualties. Simultaneously, the Austro-Hungarian invasion against Serbia ends in humiliation and retreat, with a loss of over 300,000 men. The siege of the fortress city continues. Breslau is besieged by the Russians, forcing the Germans to come to the rescue, diverting attention towards Warsaw. It leads to weeks of brutal winter fighting around the Polish cities of Lodz and Diez, but there is no clear winner. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire joins the Central Powers, declaring war on its old enemy, Russia. Turkish warships shell the Russian ports of Odessa and Sevastopol, while Russian forces cross the Turkish border in the Caucasus. Outside Europe, the war intensifies in the global oceans and in distant European colonies. German forces cross into British East Africa, modern Kenya, and occupy Taveta, while Allied forces seize the German colony of Togoland, modern Togo. However, British forces invade German Cameroon and suffer defeat at Garua and Nsanakong, while a strong force of 3,000 Germans attacks German Southwest Africa and modern-day Namibia, capturing Sanfontaine. After a month, the British landing in Tanga ends in chaos and defeat at the hands of a much smaller German force led by Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck. Cut off from Germany, Lettow-Vorbeck goes on to wage a highly successful guerrilla war against the Allies, tying down massive enemy forces. In Asia, Japan honors its treaty with Britain and declares war on Germany. Japanese forces move to seize the German naval base in Tsingtao. German colonies in Samoa and New Guinea surrender to forces from New Zealand and Australia. But in the Pacific off the coast of Chile, German Admiral von Spee's powerful East Asia squadron ambushes 2 British cruisers in the Battle of Coronel, losing each with all hands. After 5 weeks, he operates in the British Navy's working waters in the Falkland Islands. 4 out of 5 German cruisers sink. Von Spee and his flagship go down with all hands. In the Middle East, British forces capture the Ottoman port of Basra, securing access to vital Persian oil that fuels the British fleet. As winter sets in, Austrian forces finally capture Belgrade, but the Serbs then launch a counter-offensive and push them back once again. The fighting in Serbia has already cost about 200,000 casualties on each side. In the North Sea, German warships conduct hit-and-run raids on English coastal towns, shelling Hartlepool, Whitby, and Scarborough, killing over 100 civilians. On the Western Front, the French launch their first major attack against the German lines. However, the initial Battle of the Marne results in small gains at the cost of 90,000 human casualties. Meanwhile, in the Caucasus, the Ottoman offensive through the mountains in midwinter ends in disaster at Sarikamish. Turkish losses total 60,000, many freezing to death. On the Western Front, a brief ceasefire is observed in some sectors for the first Christmas, with football matches in the no-man's land between the trenches. The year 1914 is divided. The great powers in Europe split into 2 rival alliances. The Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, the emerging power in Europe, and the Triple Alliance, Germany, fearing encirclement, Austria, Hungary clinging to its fragile empire, and Italy seeking gains at the expense of the French. The spark ignites on June 28th in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is assassinated by a 19-year-old Slavic nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austria-Hungary accuses its Balkan rival, Serbia, after the assassin receives assistance, sends an ultimatum demanding humiliating concessions. Serbia rejects the ultimatum, and Austria-Hungary declares war. Within hours, Austrian forces bombard Belgrade. Russian Emperor Nicholas II, feeling an obligation to defend Serbia, a fellow Slavic state, orders the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II promises support to Austria-Hungary. He and his generals see the conflict with Russia as inevitable, and the sooner the better, as Russian strength grows annually. The Russian mobilization is used to justify German mobilization, followed by a declaration of war on Russia. Germany knows that war with Russia means war with Russia's ally, France. The Schlieffen Plan is devised to face this dual threat by swiftly advancing through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy the French armies near Paris, securing a quick victory. Then, German forces could move east to deal with Russia.